So tonight we're going to do a lesson that I've titled, How God Uses the First 5 Principles to Change Us, okay? And these principles aren't made up, right? They're in Scripture, right? They're in the Beatitudes, but they're actually all through Scripture. And tonight I want to look at the first 5 principles of Jacob, the story of Jacob. And actually his life illustrates the first 5 principles really well. And we're going to be in Genesis 31 and 32. So this is going to just be a review of the first 5 principles. The first one on your handout tonight, if you would write into the handout, would be conflict. Number 1 is conflict. It always starts with a conflict with another person. And you're probably here tonight because you got in a conflict with somebody else. It could be the police department, or it could be your husband or your wife or your friend or whoever. But you're probably here tonight because you are in some kind of conflict with somebody else. And did you know that God uses your struggles with other people to get your attention?
Oh, yeah.
So if you're experiencing any kind of relational conflict right now, that's a good thing. Congratulations. Because if you're experiencing God trying to get your attention, He's just trying to change you for the better. So let me give you a little background on the story tonight of Jacob. Jacob's entire life could be summed up by one word: conflict. He came out of the womb in conflict with his brother Esau. Right, when they were in the womb, when they were getting born, he was holding on to his brother Esau's ankle, and he was trying to pull his brother down so he could go out and be the firstborn. And that's what Jacob means. That's the name, means heel grabber or deceiver or cheater. And from that point on, Jacob and Esau fought their entire lives. In fact, Jacob cheated Esau out of his inheritance. So he's got that conflict going on. He's got that conflict going on with his brother. And then he's got another conflict going on with his father-in-law. And his father-in-law was named Laban. And Laban actually cheated Jacob out of serving him for 7 more years. And the story goes that he wanted to marry his daughter, Laban's daughter Rachel. And so he served him for 7 years. And then at that wedding, Laban did the old switcheroo and put Leah there. And so he married Leah. And then he served another 7 years to marry Rachel. So he had served Laban for 14 years. And at the end of those 14 years, he said, you know what? I'm out of here. I'm out of here. And Laban's like, no, don't go. Don't go. I'll do anything. I want to see my grandkids, right? So just whatever. So Jacob ends up running the family business. And Jacob starts to cheat Laban in the family business. And his brother-in-law start to figure it out. And that's where we pick up the story here. It's in Genesis 31. Jacob heard that Laban's sons were saying, Jacob has taken everything our fathers owned and has gained all the wealth. See, they were jealous of him. From that, from what belonged to our father. And Jacob noticed that Laban's attitude toward him was not what it had been. See, Laban was starting to catch on what was going on with the family business, and Jacob was catching on that they were catching on. So he's like, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to split. But he had nowhere to go except to go back home, but he was estranged from his brother Jacob. So what he does is he sends out all these gifts to Esau. He sends out all those, he's a very wealthy guy. He sends out all the animals. He sends out all the women. It tells you what kind of guy Jacob is, right? And he sends them all out, and he sends a messenger, and the messenger comes back and says this. The messenger returned to Jacob and said, we went to our brother Esau, and now he's coming to meet you with an army of 400 men. Jacob was terrified. Can you guys circle that word, terrified? Jacob's entire life, he's been running from conflict. He's got nowhere to go. He's got his father-in-law coming at him one way. He's got, an army of 400 men coming at him another way. He's reaping a lifetime of bad choices here. And then you notice in the next verse, Jacob prays. And he's at the end of his rope. He's, caught between a rock and a hard place, and he prays this prayer. He says, "Oh God, I am unworthy of all the kindness and faithfulness you have shown me. Save me, I pray, for I am afraid. He's scared to death. He's scared to death of the conflict that he's going to be in. And that's what happens. And Jacob at this point is stepping into principle one. Principle one is I realize that I'm not God. That I admit that I am powerless to control my tendencies to do the wrong thing, and that my life has become unmanageable. You know, when we go to God and we say, God, you know, I've been running from conflict all my life. You know, I don't deserve this. I need your help. See, that's the starting point. See, nothing in your life is going to happen until you get out of denial and you realize that you cannot solve the problem that you're in on your own. You can't save your marriage on your own. You can't save a friendship on your own. You can't make your kids right. You can't make your boss right. You can't make your brother or sister right, or your mother or your father right. Nothing starts in your life until you say, God, I need your help. I love the New Living Translation for the biblical comparison to Principle 1. That's Matthew 5:3. It's, God blesses those who realize their need for Him. And here's what Jacob does. He's got 400 men coming after him one way, right? He's got Laban coming after him the other way. So what he does is he decides that he's going to separate the family in two parts. So he sends half his family off one way and half his family off the other way. And he stays alone at this camp by the brook Jabbok. And he gets in an unusual fight. He gets in a wrestling match. He gets in a wrestling match with God. And that's principle 2. Principle 2 is, on your handout, is conflict. Or, excuse me, crisis. And the crisis is a struggle with God. In Genesis 32 it says, Jacob got them, his family, across the brook Jabbok along with all his possessions. But Jacob stayed behind, and he's left alone in the camp. A man, that's God, came and wrestled with him until dawn. So, have you ever had a wrestling match with God? Have you ever like stayed up all night long and your mind's just going a mile a minute and you can't fall asleep? What's going on in Jacob's life right here? See, his biggest conflict is not really with his brother, and it's not with his father-in-law. His biggest struggle is with God. And which, by the way, is yours too. See, let me draw the parallel here. You know the problem that you have in your life right now? The thing, you know, that crisis, that conflict that you're going through in your life? That ain't the problem. That's the symptom. Your real struggle is with God. It's going to be, who's going to be God in your life? Right? What is your struggle with God? What's my struggle? My struggle with God is when things don't go the way I want them to, and they don't go as fast as I want them to, I end up taking matters into my own hands. I don't wait. I don't trust God. I don't pray. I don't think God's going to provide my needs. And I get in a hurry. And when I do that, and I go out in the world, I struggle. Boy, do I struggle. And I wonder how many people said, I have to get married, and they go out and marry the wrong person. You know? Or I've got to get a job, or I got to make more money, and then they go out and they pick the wrong job. See, we get in a hurry. We want to take matters into our own hands. And that's what Jacob did all his life. And God says, God says, I want to bless you, Jacob. But you just don't believe it. You don't believe in the blessing. So you know the problem that you have right now, whatever you're facing, regardless of what it is, it boils down to two things. Will I trust God to take care of the situation? And will I obey God to do the right thing, even if it doesn't make sense? If you could write this down. Will I trust Him? Will I obey Him?